Hello and welcome to a preview for Zombie Army 4 Dead War. I am joined with me, as always, for the news editor from the Inner Circle Games Network, Mr. Samuel Tolbert.
Hey, Nick. Good to be back here. It's good to actually be working on something again together.
Yeah,
It's not like I haven't been working. I've been working quite a bit, as the umpteen articles that all have E3 2019 in the beginning, I'll say.
Yeah, so if you haven't already, don't forget to check out all of the previews and everything else that Sam's been doing on the site. But luckily enough, today we get to talk a little bit about Zombie Army 4 Dead War from Rebellion Developments. Sam got to go hands-on and capture some gameplay, which was from Xbox One X, if I remember correctly.
Yes, it was an Xbox One X. Funnily enough, they actually had multiple different versions for gameplay capture, which the reason that's interesting for anyone who doesn't know is that's usually not the case. Usually at a behind closed doors meeting at E3, they've got one platform and you'll take it or leave it. Like, it's very unusual to see all three, but they had all three available. So there were different people playing on all three platforms, capturing gameplay, it was really unusual. It was really unusual to see that. But I was the last to pick because I said it didn't matter. I was multi-platform, and the other two picked PlayStation 4 and PC, so I went for the Xbox.
Right on. So, for those that don't know, this is a follow-up to the Zombie Army trilogy, which I think released on Xbox One, PS4 back in 2015. So if people aren't familiar with Rebellion, Rebellion are the creators of games such as Sniper Elite, Strange Brigade, and many more fun titles. I'm going to call them. They're a blast to play with friends. We covered Strange Brigade together, actually.
We did. We reviewed that in September last year. Or was it August? No, I think it was early September. We had quite a bit of fun with that. I love the over the top tone. We should go back and try to finish some of the DLC one of these days.
Yeah, we should. So we're going to talk a little bit about the game, as you can see in the gameplay. So what we're going to talk about first is the most important thing when you're talking about a co-op 4-player zombie survival shooter experiences. How did the game play? Like, were the controls good? How'd the game... those kind of things. Like, was it smooth? Was there some issues?
It felt good to me. If anyone's played Strange Brigade, I would describe it as Strange Brigade with better shooting. That's how I would describe it. It feels very, very similar to Strange Brigade or Sniper Elite. If you've played the Sniper Elite games, very similar because the series actually started as DLC for Sniper Elite. I don't know if anyone knows that, but that's how the series got started. So yeah, it plays very similar to that. Very smooth, but the gunplay feedback is a lot better than Strange Brigade. That's the big difference. The guns feel way better to control. Hit detection is really good, and you get all these sorts of crazy multipliers for getting headshots or multi-shot kills or multi-kills with one shot, rather. I'm tired.
No, that's kind of what I always love about Rebellion is that there's been a steady progress in gameplay smoothness. I remember playing, I think it was Sniper Elite V2 on Xbox 360 was the first one of their games that I originally played. And it's just been kind of cool to see them progress with the later Sniper Elite games, Strange Brigade, and now this. So it's great to see that they're continuing to learn and improve on. So there's a class system to this, correct?
There's different characters to choose from, yes, and they each have different stuff that you can choose, different weapons you can outfit. I literally went with the default, by the way, just to let you know. So I'm not familiar with whether or not this is a new character to the series or whether this is a character who's been in one of the previous games. It's been a while since I touched one of the Zombie Army games, to be perfectly honest with you, before this, but I just went with the default. I saw this guy, saw his guns, I was like, yep, pressed A. But there are different options. There's different characters you can choose from, different skills that can do different things, different weapon customization, stuff like that.
Right on. So, in terms of customization, pretty deep, or has the option to get deeper as you play more, kind of deal?
I was sort of in the middle. Like I wouldn't say ridiculously deep. This isn't like a pick 15 system or anything like that, but definitely a decent amount of variety. There's definitely different options that you've got in terms of dealing with the zombies. You can have sniper rifles, there's machine pistols, regular pistols, shotguns, different skills. But the guy I played as, okay, so his skills, one of them is he could do a special execution on a zombie and would actually regenerate a portion of his health. So if I got low on health and my skill was recharged, I could do that and get a chunk of health back. And it's different stuff like that. There's different options in that vein.
So if you were playing with co-op with your friends, character variety will play into your team style.
Right, and you're going to want to have different characters with different guns and different skills to do different things. Exactly. You don't want all of you, if you're playing in co-op, and why would you not play in co-op? Rebellion games are best in co-op. Then you would want to make sure that you have different things equipped.
For sure. Now, of course, this is a demo and that you got hands on. Was there a lot of enemy variety? I know we got some teasers about some different enemies, and they talked in some interviews about how they were going to have a little bit more enemy variety than in the previous games. So did you get a chance to see a few more, or?
I saw a few different types of enemies. It was definitely mostly zombies, but in the sense of just plain zombies, not special ones. But there were zombies with like metal helmets, so they're more resistant to headshots. And then some zombies would regenerate, like you would see this flash of, I guess, satanic energy or something around them, and then they would suddenly revive, and then they're back on their feet. So it's like, oh, come on. So you have to kill them again. And then there were, towards the end of the demo, there were actually these really obnoxious zombies that have no arms, but have been strapped in barbed wire and dynamite. And they run at you screaming. So that's a lot of fun, dealing with them, keeping them from getting to you and stuff like that. I didn't see too much more variety beyond that. But again, this was just a small slice of one particular section of the game. So I wouldn't read too much into that. If Strange Brigade is any indication, I'm sure the enemy variety is going to be plentiful.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. With Strange Brigade, they did a very nice progression of different enemies that you could encounter, and then became, oh, well, this is a boss. Oh, actually, no, this is actually a standard enemy that you have to deal with all the time later in the game.
Oh. Exactly. I presume it's going to be the same kind of thing. I presume it'll be very similar to that.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about the weapon variety, the gun feedback. How was the game's performance? Now, people keep in mind that this is obviously a demo, and also that this game currently only has a 2020 release window, so no solid date for it yet. But how did the build feel? Was there any noticeable performance issues or anything along those lines?
I didn't have any real big issues. I mean, the frame rate dropped a couple of times, but nothing major. Like, come on, if the frame rate drops a couple of times for a little bit on a game that is still well in development and isn't close to being done, like, I don't think that's a big deal. I really don't think that's a big deal. The textures look good. It's not the most graphically stunning game, but it does all take place at night. At least this section did, which makes the colors stand out more. It looks decent. Like, I think it's fine. I don't think there's anything. If you are in the market for this kind of game, I seriously doubt there's something to be worried about there.
Yeah, for sure. And with a co-op based shooter, people are looking for a different set of things than if they're looking for a primarily multiplayer PvP experience versus a single player experience, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. This is PvE. This is PvE. So
this is PvE, and there's a whole different set of things people look for in PvE games. Now, from your time with it, do you think this is always something that's always hard to gauge, but do you think with the amount of zombies that were dropped into the world that you were fighting, because you played by yourself, with no co-op partner, do you feel like this game's gonna add in more and like scale more zombies in for the amount of players, or is this kind of going to be one of those situations? Because I know in the previous game, one of the main complaints was that the zombies didn't scale, whether you're playing a single player or with your friends. They didn't upscale how many zombies you had. So if you were playing with like 3 friends, then...
Yeah, no, that was something the developers actually, because one of them was sitting with me, encouraging me as I played. I actually had the headset half on, half off, so I could talk with him appropriately. But he explicitly told me that they were going to scale the number of zombies based off of how many people were playing. So it will be much more of a challenge if you've got 2 people or 3 people or 4 people in there versus just having one. So yeah, if you were one of the people who've complained about that in the past, they have heard your complaints.
That's awesome, because that was something I found they did really well in Strange Brigade. Actually, the enemy scaling, because I played that with you and it was a lot of fun. Now I dropped down to a solo experience. I was kind of like worried that there'd be too many enemies, or you just run out of ammo constantly because too many enemies. But it scaled down quite nicely, so I'm glad to see that's coming back. I've really got to ask, because it's a Rebellion game. So how satisfying are the headshots?
The headshots are so ridiculously satisfying. Like, that is something they know. They know exactly what they're doing when it comes to headshots, when it comes to make just pop, 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 making zombie heads fly off left and right. It feels so ridiculously good. It feels even better if you line up one of those perfect shots and you get 3 or 4 headshots in a row. With just the one shot. Oh, that feels so good. But yeah, and like I said, the gunplay feels way better than Strange Brigade. The gun feedback was legitimately fun. It provides this very good loop that keeps you involved and it keeps you wanting to play.
Right on. And kind of as a wrap-up question, and it's kind of a loaded question. How do you feel this game stacks up against other co-op focused zombie shooters? We've recently had World War Z that's done really, really well. You have Call of Duty Zombies has always been a popular thing. How does it stack up against other co-op based zombie shooters, do you think?
So that's a difficult question. I think it depends on what you're trying to get out of it. And it also depends on how much you've done with something. Like World War Z was not a particularly big game, as best I can recall. I didn't actually play it, but I did watch a friend play quite a bit of it. And that game, has a few levels, but it seems like you can grind it out fairly quickly and play through what's there for the most part fairly easily. State of Decay 2, while it is a co-op zombie game, is much more of a management sim. So it's not really the same thing as this. The focus isn't on kill as many zombies as possible, get as big of a wacky score as you can get. So I would say that the people who like something like World War Z are going to want to play this if they're looking for something more, is how I would put it. It's difficult for me to say how it stacks up per se, because like I said, I didn't really play World War Z. I'm not the biggest Zombie Army trilogy fan. My experience with that has been limited, but I would say if you like those kinds of games, this is going to be right up your alley. This is what you're looking for.
For sure, and it's important to note too, I remember the developers were talking post E3 and said the scale of this game was massively larger than the previous game. And Zombie Army traditionally has had a fair shake of level selection and everything else. So in terms of them going bigger in scale, the gunplay smoother. So in a final wrap-up thought, your overall thoughts on this game heading into 2020 when it's possibly going to release. Where are you at with that, so to speak?
That's really difficult for me to say. Yeah, I actually don't really have an answer for that, if I'm being perfectly honest with you.
No, that's okay. It's just kind of a curveball I was going to throw out there, because in terms of we always talk about, oh, well, what does the future hold? What does the future hold? And it's really interesting for me to see how much Rebellion has been changing. They've been working on a similar format for a lot of their games, but they constantly build and innovate upon their own ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just really impressive to see. And with all the lessons they learned from all their games, it makes me really excited for, say, a next generation Sniper Elite or things like that.
Yeah, it's difficult to say. I definitely, okay, I'll say this. Maybe this isn't exactly the answer you're looking for. I definitely got the sense just from playing this, just from talking with the developers briefly, that Rebellion wants to go bigger. I can definitely say that. This feels like them trying to take a formula that people like, a formula of their games that people enjoy, and branch it out even more. Because they did mention to me as well that, the game was much bigger than their previous ones. That there's more levels and stuff like that. There's more customization items and stuff like that. So I know that might not quite be the answer you're looking for, but that's definitely the sense that I'm getting.
And that's actually the answer I was looking for, is in terms of scale and what they're bringing forward. I'm really excited to see what Rebellion can bring in 2020 with all their different projects that they're working on. So that kind of wraps up our impressions. Well, Sam's impressions more than mine. So Sam, of course, the article to this is going to be linked in the description. I encourage you guys to read Sam's actual impressions, where he didn't have people throwing random questions curveballed at him.
It's mostly just going to be a couple of rephrased snippets of what I've said here, to be perfectly fair.
And if you're not already following Sam on Twitter, make sure you follow him on Twitter at Samuel Tolbert, and make sure you can check out all of his E3 previews. They've been great. What are some of the previews that you've got coming up in the next day or two?
Okay, so I'm trying to think of what's going to be out by the time this is published. Actually, by the time this is published, there's also going to be another Rebellion game, Sniper Elite VR. If you're a fan of the Sniper Elite games and you thought, well, it's perfect for VR, I've got news for you. You were absolutely correct. It's perfect for VR. I played it on PSVR, and it was revolutionary. It really was. So I'll have that. We can actually link that in the description as well, because that's going to be a Rebellion game. So that'll be here. You can check that out. And then I also was able to sneak in, quite literally, and play Control for a short bit. And so I'm going to be having some impressions on that coming out. And then finally, I actually got a chance to play Battletoads as well from Delilah Studios and Rare. And it's a blast. I had a lot of fun with it. So you can look forward to those pieces as well.
Right on. And of course, all of the Rebellion related stuff will be linked in the description. I encourage you guys to check it out. And don't hesitate to throw this video out on social media, share with your friends, or even with Rebellion. Really big fans of those guys and all the work they do. So thank you guys for watching, and we hope to be able to bring you guys more pieces like that, like this, begging your pardon, very soon. So stay tuned to the channel, and don't forget to like and subscribe and follow all our stuff on all the social medias. Thank you very much.